welcome to episode 191 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Off-Topic Weekly Podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I'm joined today by Alana Hagues.
Hey everyone.
Now, Alana, years ago, before your podcast debut on RPG Fan, there was a Castlevania Symphony of the Night episode of Retro Encounter.
There was,
and I wasn't on that episode. It was kind of a mess. It was it was Josh, Peter, Marcos, I think, and they had to scrap one recording that went poorly. So like they're all like nervously tired, laughing the whole episode because it was like their second and a half recording attempt or something. But it was a fun episode to listen to, and I'm a big Symphony of the Night fan, so I was a little miffed that I was busy or something and couldn't record that one. So we decided, screw it, let's make our own Symphony of the Night podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was really, really new when they did that episode. I have only been on the site for a month, so
that was late 2015, and I think you started fall 2015. I'm barely your senior. I started on an RPG Fan in autumn of 2014, but I think Castlevania Symphony of the Night is an all-time classic. You and I are both big Castlevania fans, and we've off the podcast talked about the series quite a bit, in fact. So I thought this was worth talking about, both because we love Symphony of the Night, and I had zero issues just replaying it for a couple weekdays in a row. But also, I think that the timing of this also makes sense for a side discussion that we'll get to later. But for now, this is officially RPG Fans Retro Encounters second Castlevania Symphony of the Night episode. So on the title screen of your playback device, it should say Castlevania Symphony of the Night Revisited.
It's like the reverse castle of the first episode of Retro Encounter on the Symphony of the Night.
That metaphor is so perfect, I'm a little bit jealous that I couldn't think of it myself. Yes.
I'll be really honest, I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, oh yeah, it works.
We got on our holy glasses, we defeated the little green ball floating above Richter Belmont, and we're visiting a second castle.
Yeah.
Be careful for those beam skeletons. Oh, boy.
Oh, every time. We'll get to the reverse castle, but yeah.
So, let's talk about I'm going to recap the story of Symphony of the Night extremely briefly, just so we, readers that maybe don't remember the game perfectly or haven't played it will be a little clued in. Symphony of the Night is a direct sequel to Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was a game that was Japan only for many years, but and as such, and it also had a bad SNES sort of remake that was just called Dracula X in North America. And so in the original North American version of Symphony of the Night, it says continued from Dracula X or something at the very beginning instead of Rondo of Blood. But that's just some weird side details. So at the very beginning of Symphony of the Night, you do a truncated version of the final boss of Rondo of Blood or Dracula X, where Richter Belmont defeats Dracula. And Richter have an argument beforehand in which maybe the most famous line of dialogue in Castlevania history is uttered. Dracula tells Richter that mankind...
What is a man?
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets.
It's so good, though.
It's really good. And, I played this game on the Castlevania Requiem remaster for PS4.
Oh, yeah.
They changed all the dialogue, and the new dialogue isn't bad, but it's no miserable little pile of secrets.
No, I played the Requiem version last year, and it's all borrowed off of the PSP port. So
correct, yes.
We got the Dracula X Chronicles, which is a remake of Rondo of Blood, I believe, on the PSP in 2008 or 9.
And I played that as well.
Yep. This is the first time I played Symphony of the Night, so I got the truncated, redubbed version, first time. So you get a special, you have to do, I think you go down a side path, because the thing that Rondo of Blood's really famous for is having branching paths within a stage-based Castlevania game. And if you go down one of them, you unlock Symphony of the Night as a secret, which I think is really neat. It's got a couple of extra features in it, but this is where the dialogue's from.
Yeah, Dracula X Chronicles is basically a big 2.5D remake of Rondo of Blood, but you can unlock Symphony of the Night, original Rondo of Blood, and original Dracula X for the SNES, all hidden in that game.
I
It's
didn't get that far.
it's
I was
it's
too enamored with
it,
Symphony of the Night.
it's a pretty impressive package on the PSP. But yeah,
Yeah.
but the that version of Symphony of the Night has newly recorded dialogue, new voice work. It has a couple extras that were in the Saturn version, I think. Um,
Yes.
so it's a good version of Symphony of the Night. But if you want the miserable little pile of secrets, you have to get the original PS1 version, which you can get on PS3 or Vita as a PS1 classic. So it's not like they're withholding that version of the game from us. It's just, you have to go down a slightly different branching path, as it were.
Yeah. That's right. That's the version I have. Because actually buying it physically is really hard because it had a really, really low print run. It's so expensive to get secondhand.
Here, I think it's a little easier to get secondhand. I think it had a a PlayStation Greatest Hits version or something.
Okay.
So I remember I didn't have a huge amount of trouble finding the disc many years ago when I was first seeking out this game.
Oh.
But but yeah, there's ways to get to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's been released enough places that it's not a challenge to find digitally. But anyway, back to the story. So you play the very end of Rondo of Blood / Dracula X, and Richter defeats Dracula. Then fast forward, what is it, like 10 years later, 5 years later, something like that?
Something like that.
Castlevania has risen again. Castlevania is again a mysterious phantom castle that appears once every 100 years, supposedly, but it's definitely more often than that, looking through the morass of Castlevania storyline over the years.
Isn't the specific line it's an agent of chaos?
Yeah,
The castle changes every time it reappears.
yeah, an agent of chaos or creature of chaos, something like that.
Hmm.
But Castlevania rose again, although Richter was supposedly defeated Dracula years earlier. So Alucard, who's been sleeping in his own personal tomb for centuries, rises from the grave and like jumps in through the front gate. And Alucard is the son of Dracula. Alucard is Dracula backwards, and was a playable character in Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse for the NES. So this is they're going deep into Castlevania lore here, and believe you me, we are going to go deep into Castlevania lore, or at least a little bit. So the player character is Alucard. He navigates through the castle, learns that the master of the castle is a Belmont, because Richter Belmont is from the legendary lineage of vampire hunters named Belmont, and he also meets Maria, a who was a little girl in Rondo of Blood and is now in her late teens or early 20s. And she's looking for Richter, who's mysteriously gone missing. So Richter is clearly not himself because he's acting like a Belmont version of Dracula. And Alucard explores the castle, occasionally running into Maria, occasionally running into Richter. And there's two pathways from here now. You can either defeat Richter straight up, and in which Castlevania sinks and Maria's sad, or if you find a few hidden items, you can see that there's some mysterious orb floating over Richter when you fight him. And if you destroy the orb instead of killing Richter, he comes to his senses. It turns out he was being manipulated by an evil priest named Shaft, who was a villain in Rondo of Blood. And Shaft is trying to use the Belmont's power to defeat other would-be vampire hunters, so Dracula can resurrect again. And at this point, you get maybe one of the coolest video game plot twists of the PlayStation era. A second castle unlocks, and it is exactly like the first, except it's upside down, and some background features are changed, like the room full of lava at the basement of the first one is now full of green goo. And the reverse castle connects to the original castle by the very tallest tower, like the very top,
Keep, yeah.
the very topmost keep rooftops are sort of touching, and then the reverse castle or inverse castle, whatever you want to call it, extends above the first castle. So you get two enormous castles to explore, maybe a dozen or so bosses, a lot of hidden secrets, a lot of really silly jokes and references. But you navigate two castles, eventually challenge Dracula. There's some more insane dialogue that only makes sense in a B movie or a video game, and then if you explored enough of the castle, you'll get a very sweet ending where Maria decides she's in love with Alucard and chases after him.
Right? He's just gonna go and sleep though. He's gonna do exactly the same thing he did after Dracula. Not Dracula's curse. He just goes to sleep until he's needed again in
he
400 years time, I
Yeah,
think.
he's really beating himself up. Alucard's like, my bloodline is cursed. It shouldn't exist. I'm just gonna seal myself away again. And if you get enough percentage explored on the castle, Maria will chase after him, and
Yeah.
Richter will be like, go to him. Maria and Richter are not romantically involved. I think he's the fiance of Maria's sister, who's
Yeah, I
yeah, and
think so.
she's one of the people you can rescue in Rondo of Blood.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But I mean, we've been alluding to it. Symphony of the Night is first of all, it's just a real fun action game. Like, I mean, the castle is cool. It has all this gothic setting, and you're fighting all kinds of monsters. Alucard's really fun to control, but really, this game references, I think, every single Castlevania game that came before it.
Yeah, I think so. Must do.
Like, do you have a favorite reference or it's like point of celebration? Because like I could list a bunch, but like
God. Yeah. Jesus. I have to think about it for a minute.
I'll, I'll,
Well,
I'll say
go for it.
I'll say my favorite first. I really like that there's a boss fight against the other three playable
Yeah.
characters of Castlevania 3. In Castlevania 3, you control I believe it's Trevor Belmont.
Yeah.
And depending on the branching paths you take through the levels, you can recruit a second character. There's a pirate named Grant, a priestess named Sifa, and then Alucard, the son of Dracula. So there's a boss fight where there's these three sarcophagi with skeletons, and they seal themselves. Some magic spells happened, and then out pops zombie versions of Trevor, Sifa, and Grant, and that's one of the boss fights in the inverted castle. Extremely clever. I loved seeing that, and even when Maria and Alucard are discussing Belmonts for the first time, a thought bubble appears above Maria with a sprite of Richter, and then
Yeah.
and then a thought bubble appears above Alucard with an NES sprite of
Yeah.
Trevor.
It's so good. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, it's really cute visual reference like that. Do you have a favorite moment like that in the game?
Well, that's probably my favorite. I don't really know if these things are references to other games because actually, racking my brain, I can't really remember many of them, even though I played this a few days ago. But I just like all of the little silly things you can do in the castle, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
there's one room in the bottom of the I can't remember the really tall section at the end of the first castle before the long library and the clock tower.
Right. Oh, I
If you
don't.
go to the
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's the vertical area on the eastern side of the map.
Yeah, where the elevator is. And if
Hmm.
you go right down to the bottom, you see a little nest with a bird in it. You have to look through the telescope anyway to get Sharon to do the Charon to do the to take you across the water in the underground caverns. But if you leave and re-enter the room a few times, you'll notice the bird comes back or flies away. He's got eggs at one point and then comes back and brings food. And then I think at the very end it will they'll hatch and then you can watch them fly off and then it starts all over again. Or there's the really obvious one where you can sit down in the chapel and you can confess your sins and you get stabbed by various different items and
Yeah,
weapons.
well, yeah,
But
yeah. If you confess your sin and you wait for the priest to disappear, then he'll attack you. But if you sit in the priest's chair,
yeah,
some random people will come in and confess sins to you.
I don't think yeah.
What a silly little thing to be in this game.
But it's fun though because if you are one of those people who have history with like say the Metroid series and you like exploring and you think oh there's a chair there I'll sit on it and you figure out that and then if you do it to everything it kind of punishes you for being like really nosy and I really like that because first time I played it I was like oh you can sit on chairs so I just did it everywhere and then when the curtain draws I thought oh okay maybe I'll stick around and see what happens and then you can take damage and it's like oh okay well at least there's a save point right before this room, so I didn't die. But I don't think they're direct references to anything, but I just think they're really cool, like quirks that are in Symphony of the Night, and it's full of them. Like it's got so many little references and
Oh yeah,
jokes and fun
there's
things.
yeah, like you can really hear the writer's sense of humor in this game. There's some boot accessories that increase Alucard's height by 1 or 2 pixels.
Yeah, it works.
And you can buy a cloak called the Joseph cloak that where you can program its color,
I love that though.
which is
It's so
super cute.
expensive, but it's so
Yeah.
worth it.
And well, I mean the one cloak that has better stats than it has a black exterior and a an exterior that oscillates between red and black. So it's the one cloak better than the Joseph cloak is also really cool. And going back to small reference things, you fight the five bosses other than Dracula in the inverted castle
Yeah,
from Castlevania 1, and they
right,
and as you defeat each of them, they drop the five Dracula items from Castlevania 2.
right, yes.
So it's just like you fight Slagra and Gaibon, the near final bosses from Castlevania 4, but they're the
Oh,
first
yeah.
boss of the game this time. And there's just so many references and rewards for fans that I think that it's I don't have any articles or research supporting this, but I'm wondering if they were worried this was going to be like the last Castlevania game.
Well, I mean, I guess it was just because Symphony of the Night was such a big shift in everything, like mechanically. It still feels like a Castlevania game, because you've still got Alucard still uses sub weapons, so they're similar from the other games. But like in terms of like every Castlevania game that had come before it was basically your standard arcade stage based,
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
got this much health, you'll die, they're quite hard kind of
yeah. And
things.
you're marching left to right for the most part.
Hmm,
At a
exactly.
very deliberate pace. Those guys, those Belmonts really aren't sprinting through the stages.
But yeah, so I wonder if putting all those references in are just like, hey, look, we still acknowledge everything that we've done before it. This is what we want to do with it now, kind of thing. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me thinking idealistically. But like, I think it's to just try and get people on board, which is why it's full of references and related to other games.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe it was because Castlevania is not popular in Japan. It's not popular in many places. Like it does
No,
better in the West, but like not much. I would say they're
no,
not hugely selling.
it's never been a huge selling game, even for Konami. I mean, Konami's biggest blockbusters over the years have probably been the Metal Gear games,
Hmm.
and Koji Igarashi, who worked on Symphony of the Night, he was a programmer for a dating sim game called Tokimeki Memorial,
Yeah.
and Tokimeki Memorial sold way better than than Castlevania Symphony of the Night did.
Yeah.
And his bosses sort of let him work on Symphony of the Night because Tokimeki Memorial had done so well. He wasn't like the architect of Tokimeki. He was one of the writers and programmers on it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how Metroid sells over there. I think again,
Yeah,
it's not like the biggest selling, but
I have
yeah.
heard that Metroid is way more popular in the West than in Japan.
Yes.
But for Castlevania, it's maybe less dramatic. I think that Metroid is more popular than Castlevania in general. But it's also the case that it's not hugely popular in Konami's native Japan. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, uh, I don't want to say that this game is particularly Japanese or Western. Like it's a Japanese action platforming game, but it has a lot of Western influence. Like I mean, it's a big Gothic castle
Yeah.
with a lot of Western monster movie influenced monsters in it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, I mean, it's ripped straight out of Bram Stoker's Dracula, isn't it? Which
yeah,
is English literature, so.
yeah, and Alucard has power over wolves, bats, and mists, just like Dracula does in the book.
Hmm.
Dracula. I mean, Alucard can turn into a wolf and a bat because so can Dracula. in in the book, and I'm not referring to the Francis Ford Coppola movie with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves in it, which is its own very unique beast. Oh
Yeah.
boy, that
Yeah.
thing. Now I love Keanu Reeves way more than the average person does, but his
Oh no,
his
that's not a
British
good
his
choice.
his British accent in that movie is so bad. Holy
It,
crap.
yeah, no, I just don't want to think about it
Yeah.
actually. Gary Oldman saves that film entirely, I would say.
Gary Oldman is really going for it, but Keanu Reeves is probably, I don't know, that movie's probably right before or right after Point Break, and let's say that Keanu was more believable as a surfing FBI agent in Point Break.
Yeah.
But but anyway, back to Symphony of the Night. We're talking about like all the weird like jokes and sense of humor that this game has. There's also let's go to Alucard himself. He's a pretty powerful, versatile character to be controlling for a 97, 98 game.
Right, exactly. It's also the first time that the main character doesn't use a whip, so
Hmm.
it's a big shift. And
I, d-
again,
I don't
Lucas's
think I
whole
don't
shift.
think I don't think Alucard has a whip, does he?
He doesn't use one at all. No,
Yeah.
so it's the first time you don't have a whip at all in the entire series, which is really strange if you've been playing all of them.
Yeah, most of the weapons are swords, but there's also, there's also like
Rods,
magic canes and like mace
fists.
maces, morning stars, knives, a couple fist weapons, a lot of magic spells.
Yeah, he's
But
really versatile.
yeah, probably 100 equipable weapons. I don't have a number in front of me. And also he does have the classic Castlevania sub weapon system, where if you hit an attack button with up at the same time, then you'll use one of the special holy items that you can find hidden usually in candles. And there's something like a dozen of those sub weapons. There's a pretty wide variety of them.
I
Uh,
do love the fact that you have to get an up, like the very first upgrade you get in the game allows you to get items out of candles. So
mhm.
I have to wonder what the vampire killer has in it that allows the Belmonts to get the same items out of candles. Like, what magic does it possess to be like, oh, I've hit a candle, have an axe or
If
something?
I knew, I would tell you.
Yeah.
The Belmont bloodline and the Vampire Killer Whip have many, many secrets that are not adequately explored in the Castlevania lore.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alucard has a lot of weapons. He has sub weapons, even though mostly I'm trying to either get an axe or holy water, or secretly I think the Sacred Ash is underrated in this game.
Yeah, I don't really use it, but I've seen people using it in like speed runs or
Yeah,
things
if
or like just playing in general, and it is really good.
it's better than the holy water if enemies are strictly staying on the ground and you know where they're gonna go. Those Dullahan and oh shoot, you know what I mean? Like the enemies that are like sprinting at you on horseback.
Oh, the Valhalla Knights,
Yeah,
yeah.
those guys. Ash stays on the ground a long time, and they'll instantly die if they hit it.
Oh,
So like if there's like a charging ground bound enemy, then the Ash is like a better version of Holy Water.
yeah.
But
Well, there's a couple of items like that
oh
that
yeah,
are because the ash is quite rare. I think it's only maybe 3 or 4 candles throughout the
maybe
game, whereas yeah,
it's a little uncommon. It's not like the crosses that are only in two candles the whole game.
yeah,
But it's not as common as an axe. But like I usually want axe if I want to go to enemies hit enemies above me, or holy water or ash if I want to hit enemies below me.
yeah.
But there's a ton of them, including the oh shoot the lightning sub weapon that would be the coolest in the game if you didn't lose hearts so fast.
Yeah, no, that.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, the one that you get in the Colosseum
Yes.
area. Yeah, it is so good, but
It's
yeah,
so
it's
good, but
just
I
worth
went
it.
from like 160 hearts to 0 in 15 seconds.
Yeah, well, I you don't really get a lot of like there are heart refill items in the game that you pick up later on, but I don't think you can buy them. Like otherwise, so the
No,
only other way
I
you
don't think
can
so.
so the only other way you get refills is by hitting candles, and it takes a long time to fill up 200 hearts by the end of the game.
Yeah, but you bet your ass I was hitting every single candle I ever saw throughout the entire game because that's my years of playing Castlevania games
Me too.
like coming at me, and also because I want to keep my hearts up because axes and holy water are good in this game.
Yeah. They're ridiculously overpowered. Some of like the holy water in particular
The holy
for
water is
some
super good.
bosses is ridiculous.
Hmm.
But it always has been.
Yeah,
So it's no
yeah
change.
in the first Castlevania one, the holy water was sort of harder to throw, but I think you could get almost any boss in the game into like a frozen state if you timed the holy water right.
Yeah.
So that's the way to beat that game quickly is to get your holy water timing down. But not just sub weapons. Alucard also has I want to say about maybe 8 magic spells that he can cast
Yeah.
that use button inputs similar to a fighting game. He can transform into a bat or a wolf or mist, and he also can summon I want to say 7 or 8 familiars that accompany him like little partners doing attacks or healing spells here and there. So it's
Yeah.
like there's just a lot of stuff that Alucard can do, and you could probably beat the game just with sword strikes, but there's so much he can do that it almost feels like you're not having him live to his full potential if you don't.
They level up really quickly as well, and they all have their uses. Like
Mhm.
I think there's five. I don't know. So
Only 5?
no, there's two fairies, isn't there? There's one green and one red, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's 2 fairies: the imp, the bat, the sword.
Or maybe there's six then.
No,
And
is
then
there a ghost?
yes, there is. And then
Yeah.
there's the devil, which
Oh yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. The Yeah,
So this, yeah, right.
the devil's helpful because he's the only one that can press a button that you see only twice you see only twice in the game, and I say twice because one of them's in the inverted castle.
It makes me crack up though when he presses it because just the way that it speaks, I was not expecting that voice to come out of its mouth at all.
Yeah, God, the voice work is not great in this game. But speaking of voice work, how about all of the horrified screams that happen when you defeat so many enemies?
Oh, they're so good.
They're
I mean, I
great.
love the voice work because it's just so 90s. It's so that era. It's so Resident Evil 1 and Mega
And
Man. Is it
oh,
4? Mega
oh,
Man
okay.
X4?
Either Mega Man 8 or Mega Man X4.
Yeah.
Those are the two that have the legendarily bad voice acting.
I have a
And
special place in my heart for that.
oh, yeah, me too. Especially since those games are honestly among the better Mega Man games. Full stop. So I've played them more than average for Mega Man, but yeah, God, the voices are terrible. But I mean, I just love the screams that enemies do in this game. 'Cause there's like I don't want to try to emulate them on this podcast because screaming into a mic is not good podcasting. But the just like the horrified screams of defeated enemies are just great in this game. I love them.
Everything explodes as well. It
Everything
doesn't, it doesn't
explode,
matter what it is.
yeah, explodes, or maybe sometimes they pop or melt, or they burst into flames. But yeah, they don't just fade away.
Yeah, I've got like so many of the like death sounds or even the noises that enemies make. Like I think Fleeman in particular, the little imp noise, like the jumping noises they make, just I'm always like, oh god, not these again, and I'm just try and run past them. But like they're iconic in a cheesy way. I love them and can associate each and every single one with another enemy. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just love them, and I'm not going to emulate any of them either. But they're super special.
Oh God, I don't know if I have a favorite enemy. I mean, I really like in how the reverse library. There's four enemies that you run into. There's the shmoos,
Yeah.
which are ghosts that we'll talk about a little bit in a second. But the other
Uh-huh.
three are scarecrow zombies, robots called Tin Men, and then knights with lion heads called lions.
Yep.
So yeah, scarecrow, Tin Man, and lion are the are the enemies in the
I
inverse library.
I did not figure this out because they've got different names in the PS1 version.
Ah, okay.
So it was when I played the Requiem version was actually paying attention to the names. I did not realize that they were Wizard of Oz references in case listeners didn't realize. So I was like, hang on a minute, Lion, Tin Man. The Tin Man is still called a Tin Man in the PS1 version, but I
Right.
think the Lion is called something else. And I just suddenly twigged and I was like, oh my god! I was just freaking out for a while.
I'm sure that was the intention of the Japanese developers. I 100%
Oh,
guarantee it.
oh, definitely.
That's
Yeah, it's an
that's
inverse castle.
yeah.
It's weird.
But also, this game is pretty rife with secrets. There's a lot of if you go real deep into it, there's a lot of stuff that will I mean trivialize how easy the game is, but also just reward players that go incredibly hard with exploration. Like those shmoo enemies that I mentioned have as a 1% drop a sword called the Crisegrim, which is called Valmon Way in some other Castlevania games, where you can attack without pausing. So you can just like and it'll do four strikes with a single button press, and each of those strikes will be average or above average damage. So you're not pausing to attack, you're not interrupting anything. You're just if you tap the square or circle button relatively rhythmically, you'll just be raining death all around you. It's a
It,
game that as a sword so strong that it's become a little famous in Castlevania circles.
it's ridiculous. But sometimes, this time around, I usually get it not that quick, but this time it took me about an hour and a half to get, which is a
Mm.
bit slow. But
Actually,
so I leveled up so
I
much.
got it very quickly. It took me less than 20 minutes, I think. I
Jeez,
got
yeah.
and it's the fastest I've ever gotten it. I've played Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I don't know how many times. Probably I don't know, 7 to 10 times total over the, and I knew about the Crisegrim going in just by reputation, so I almost always try to get it. But this time I had the easiest time yet getting it. Maybe the Requiem version boosts the drop rate or something, but
Maybe.
but yeah, and you get a trophy for it even in the Requiem version.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
But so I did that and used that to beat the game easily. But also there's two weapons, the Moblung and the Shield Rod, which if you equip them with a shield and then press both attack buttons at once, then it does a special attack based on what shield you have equipped. And sometimes it's hilarious, like the Hide Shield summons a cow, and
Yeah.
the Herald Shield summons a random knight that's called a Warrior of Dawn.
Yeah.
And if you find the best shield, the Alucard shield, and do that, then you become invincible for 10 seconds and deal incredible damage to anyone you touch. And that's probably the most unbalancing skill in the game. It's even stronger than the Crusade Grim.
Yeah, it's ridiculously good. I mean, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is really, really easy to break,
Yeah,
even with its glitches. But yeah, it's
it's
just
not
so
that
fun.
challenging to begin with. Like people might have difficulty with, I don't know, with Legion or with
I think the first
or
boss
with
can be hard if you're not used to it. Like I always struggle a little bit because I don't really spend a lot of time grinding.
mm,
But because you take a lot of damage at that point, but it's when you start getting better armor and better gear. Like by the time you're in the underground caverns, you're probably pretty safe. But the
yeah, yeah.
reverse castle, like,
The first one or two bosses can be hard. Like I remember the demon in the library messed me up a little bit because he
mm,
was just dealing way too much damage for me for the because I went there a little too early. And the doppelganger enemy in the tower
yeah.
can kill you a little easily if he hits you with one of his big fireball attacks.
Hmm.
But once you start getting some equipment and start getting some health improvements, I think the only really challenging bosses are like maybe Galamoth, the hidden boss in the Inverse Castle,
Yeah,
who was the final boss of the old Kid Dracula
I know.
game for the regular Famicom, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm. And
We've
he's a
got that now.
yeah, he was a colorful, cartoony, kooky space alien in that game, but now is a giant, terrifying alien demon.
He's also extremely exploitable, even
Yeah,
without
yeah.
the Chris Grim or the shield rod
Yeah,
combination.
if you find him at an angle, there's ways you can position yourself so he can't attack you, and you can just drop holy water until he's dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, they like it's this game is you could just beat the game in 7 hours by going through the motions, or you can find a truly remarkable number of hidden things yeah, to exploit the hell out of this game. And I think that I mean I'm not really a challenge hound a lot of the time, but just seeing a game reward time investment and exploration like this is extremely satisfying.
Hmm.
Like I don't get the Crusaegrim because I need it. I get the Crusaegrim because it's so satisfying just carving through the rest of the game with this super fast sword.
Yeah, depending on because both ways in the reverse castle starts off a lot harder than the rest of the game. Like everything does tons of damage to
Yeah,
you. You've got those
if you run into a
beams.
beam, yeah, the beam skeletons will deal like a full third or half of your health with one hit
Yeah.
until you get some reverse castle armor on you.
And to even get to the clock tower, like the central room, it's guarded by these knights, and they do so much damage, and it's just so hard to get around. Like either way you go, so you can either go through the reverse clock tower, which has got tons of enemies in it, but they're a bit more dodgeable. But then you've got to go through the Medusa heads, which is a pain in the backside. Or you can go through the chapel, the reverse chapel,
Yeah,
and you've got those poisonous balloon flower
yeah,
things that are a pain.
the chapel, and then the inverse Ulrach's quarters, which have a
Oh
bunch of
God,
Valhalla knights and the mummy boss, which was not very challenging.
no.
But yeah, because this is a nonlinear action game that gates exploration by finding items and skills, like a Metroid game, which is why that
Hmm.
style of game is often called Metrovania, which is a word I don't love using, but uh, this game is why we have the Trovania half of Metrovania.
Yeah.
Um, and but because it's a nonlinear exploratory game like that, when you get to the inverse castle, you can transform into a bat and transform into a mist and open any locked doors that you need to open. So it's not really gating and directing your exploration. It's just letting you get to the center of the castle however you want to, and you can go through some weird hoops getting to the center of the castle.
Yeah, it doesn't really tell you what you need to do either.
Nope.
So you don't know whether you've got to fight all the bosses or, you do only have to fight five of them, which I
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah, they're the ones from
Yep.
Castlevania 1. So,
Yep. The bat Medusa, the creature, which is basically Frankenstein's monster, and
the
then
mummy
the mummy and death.
and death.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, you don't know you have to do that, so you end up fighting probably more. I mean, like for me personally, I always explore the map anyway because I
Yeah.
love
Oh yeah.
the satisfaction of getting the percentage up and seeing the map color in is just so nice.
It really is. Even in modern games that do that, like in oh shoot, I played Ys 8 last year, and just exploring the island and filling in the map is
Yeah,
maybe the most fun part of that game.
yeah,
And
yeah.
whenever you're playing an RPG and there's like points of the map that are faded out, and you know that you can fill them in or just
Hmm.
get rid of the smudges by exploring that area is maybe a bigger motivation for me to explore than actual story.
Yeah,
It's like whatever story. I want to just open up the rest of this map and see if there's a treasure chest there.
basically, or just color it in because it looks nicer.
You know, maybe you have a point there. The like we aren't in primary school with coloring as part of the curriculum anymore. So now we scratch that itch by playing RPGs with map mechanics.
Yeah. Although I think Star Ocean does it as well. Star Ocean 3 is the one I remember. But filling in those maps is a pain. They are like
Yeah,
you have to touch every pixel on the map and
and,
it is a nightmare to do.
and especially like there's some real weird circumstances. Like there's upside down water in the inverse castle
Oh
that flows
yeah.
down to up, and that makes getting to some of those pixels that are underwater that you have to jump up into the water for. It can be really annoying. Just
Yeah.
getting every single dot of the map filled in, especially in the inverse castle. But I mean, filling out the castle is extremely satisfying in every Castlevania game that came after this.
Yeah, I think so as
and
well.
and we should mention we did bring up Koji Igarashi. We're going to talk about him a little later, but he was not the main director of Symphony of the Night. He was a story writer and programmer, but then the director of the game left for another project halfway through, and Igarashi sort of got promoted to assistant director and then finished the game. But then afterward, when we had a run of oh shoot, I want to say 8 or 9 Castlevania games from say '99 to 2008.
Yeah.
He was the lead director and designer for more than half of them.
Yeah.
He didn't work on Circle of the Moon, and I think one of the later and I think the PS2 ones he was only partially involved in those, but all of those really great GBA and DS games that we got in Castlevania, he was the architect of almost all of them, and
Hmm.
I mean, I loved that run of games.
Yeah,
I
so
was
good.
super excited that I got to play a new Castlevania game almost every year.
Me too.
My overall favorite, I don't know, it's oh shoot, it's a battle. It comes down between Aria of Sorrow or Order of Ecclesia. Those are the two.
Yeah, Chuck Symphony of the Night in there as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
soft spot. Yeah.
I was talking post Symphony of the Night,
Okay, yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, agreed. Totally.
any of those would be a pretty good retro encounter episode. Just saying.
Well, they're there and nobody wants them, so
Oh,
it's like so disappointing.
we have them on the Google Doc, and I think you and I are the only two people interested in doing them.
I mean, I'll replay them. It's fine. They don't take very long,
Mm.
so play them on a harder difficulty, or maybe try out Julius mode in Aria
Ooh,
or
well,
Dawn.
that's not a bad idea. Because
Yeah.
in Dawn you can fulfill your Dragon Quest. I'm sorry, I just have Dragon Quest in the brain. You can fulfill your Castlevania 3 fantasy by having Julius, Yoko, and Alucard as a tag team, just like just like Trevor, Sifa, and Alucard.
Yeah. On a side note for to Aria or Dawn of Sorrow, how obvious is it that Aracado is Alucard? And how much of an idiot did I feel after finding that out and thinking,
I
oh yeah.
well, I didn't feel like an idiot because I thought it was pretty obvious from the beginning.
I
But
was definitely an idiot 10-year-old then. I'll admit that.
oh God, you're all so much younger than me. I was only an idiot 18-year-old, or I'd have to check the dates to find out remember exactly when that came out. Um, but but yeah, like all of those games that Igarashi worked on after Symphony of the Night, they were almost all well received. They were at least very good in the moment, but were definitely made in Symphony of the Night's image. And I don't know if any of them quite get to the level of Symphony of the Night. And I mean, the technology limitations is part of it, but also just none of those characters can do as much stuff as Alucard can. Like,
Soma's comes the closest, but that's probably why Aria of
yeah, but
Sorrow is like the nearest one because of the soul system in those games.
yeah,
Like,
but with the soul system, you're collecting monster souls like Pokemon, and you have to
oh, I
you have to
love it.
equip them. But Alucard has a regular sword strike and a sub weapon and 8 spells
Yeah.
and 3 transformations and a familiar buddy without entering a menu even.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if they just go for particular quirks though, because like every single game in that series, maybe like after Symphony of the Night, maybe apart from Harmony of Dissonance, which I don't really think has anything unique about it. Maybe,
You
I mean,
can
it's got an
you
alternate
can you can
castle.
attach a gemstone to the end of your whip.
Ah, yeah,
Hey.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. But like every single one's got a different quirk. So like Circle of the Moon has the card-based system where you would put different cards on and you get different spells out of them. You've
Hmm.
got the Soul system from the Sorrow games. Dawn of Sorrow also is an early DS game, so it wants you to use the touchscreen whenever you can
Oh
and
yeah.
draw glyphs after killing the bosses, which is a nightmare with the really big glyph when you're fighting bosses like Abaddon or Paranoia, I think, is one of the first ones.
And
And you have to
and you
draw
have
this massive glyph, and
yeah,
you're like,
you have to draw like eight pointed stars in less than 3 seconds while you're fighting an intense boss fight. And it also was from that era of DS games where, for the first couple of years, they tried to have as many games use the DS acronym as often as they could.
Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right there
exactly.
with Advanced Wars, Dual Strike, and all the rest.
Yeah, it's fine though.
That's a good DS game too. Do I like Dual Strike was a really solid strategy game. But anyway, um, yeah, like I think they're all a little bit limited by controls and technology to so that like the gimmick of every one of these handheld Castlevania games doesn't quite live up to Symphony of the Night. I mean, I love the main character of Order of Ecclesia, like
Hmm.
equipping glyphs like tattoos for different weapons and spells and letting them synergize together and stuff. That was super dope. Uh, but I don't know if any of them quite hit the highs of Symphony of the Night, just because the castle is so big and cool and it felt weird and experimental, and there's like so many hidden jokes and hidden secrets. I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't talked about the art of the music yet because I mean, Ayami Kojima is not uh, she's a successful artist, but doesn't have like the copious catalog of a lot of people that just work on game art every year, and it's I don't know it's like it's a weird balance of gothic 90s anime that's maybe kind of like Vampire Hunter D and nothing else.
Yeah, it's kind of romantic. I can see it in like 17th century gallery paintings and
I
things like
I
that. Like it's
love the
just so
port I
cool.
love the portrait art and the concept art of Symphony of the Night. It all looks incredible. And when they changed art styles between Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow, I was a little upset.
Oh God. The thing is though, is Dawn of Sorrow was my first Metroidvania. And I bought it because of the anime graphics, and I'm so disappointed in teenage me for just picking that up based on that. Because then when I went back to look at all the older artwork, I was like, I'd played other Castlevania games, just none of the Metroidvanias, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, like this is worse. I was like, why have you? Because they've stripped the personality out. Although anime a la carte is still pretty good. So
I
that's
like anime
fine.
a la carte and Yoko more than like every other character in those games,
Hmm.
but it loses something. I mean, compared to this crazy gothic anime fantasy that is Ayami Kojima's style. Like Symphony of the not a whole lot of games look like Symphony of the Night.
No, exactly. You can tell that for Smash because obviously Richter and Simon are in it. They have spirits for some of the characters,
Hmm.
and you can tell when they use Jonathan Morris, who's the protagonist of Portrait of Ruin, and Charlotte Orlin, who's the second character. You swap between both characters. They use Ayami's art. So instead of the anime art that was used in their games. So you can tell that that's got more of an impact. Definitely, I love it though. I love the kind
Yeah,
of gothic style. It's
yeah, her
so
art
cool.
style's great, and especially since so many of the enemies have these big, cool sprites that are
Hmm.
emulating that style of art. It's just a great looking game, even in 2019.
Yeah, Symphony of the Night's great.
I don't love the small 3x4 window that I have to play the game in on the Requiem version.
Yeah,
That doesn't look great, but but the assets on screen do look good.
yeah, I do love the sprite work in Symphony of the Night. It's so smooth. And actually, I think going back to why I don't think any of the other games have been as successful, made such an impact, Symphony of the Night is really quick. Like Alucard moves a lot faster than Julius or Soma or anybody else.
Yeah,
They
and he
feel
and
smoother.
and he definitely moves faster than the deliberate march that the Belmonts do in the NES games. But even when like you change direction with Alucard, he has a lot of frames to his turnaround animation that's all very smooth and very fast. And you eventually unlock skills. The gravity boots give you a super jump, and you can eventually unlock like a speed charge when you're in wolf form that have you really move through the game fast.
I
Um,
mean, it's pretty exploitable with the backdash shield thing that you can do. Like if you just swap between backdashing and the shield, you can literally infinitely backdash with no slowdown at all, and it's pretty wonderful.
yeah, it's I mean, especially RPGs maybe, but like looking at RPGs with traditional battle systems now versus 20 years ago, they move so much more quickly now because I think like UI designers value players' time more. And to
Hmm.
see a game that feels fast moving, that's a 97 or 98 game, is remarkable. And like I didn't feel like Symphony of the Night was wasting my time often, except for maybe I think I did a couple segments out of order where I should have had the mist and didn't. So I did a whole section of the game only to be stymied by a mist gate at the very end. It's like, oh damn it, this is really.
Do you know, I always do that. I think you're talking about the bit of the long library with the lesser
Yes, yes,
demon. Yep,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
used to do that all the time. I
The
used to go there
library.
without the mist.
You can access it once you have the double jump, but you need mist at the very end to get the bat form. And I did that way early, and I didn't have the mist yet. So that was just a big double eye roll, navigate to the opposite side of the castle and go back kind of situation. But
Difficulty, yeah.
also this game has fast travel points.
Yeah, it's the first one,
Yeah,
obviously. But yeah.
does Metroid have those? Because I mean, I have to confess, I have only finished one Metroid game.
As have I, but I have finished Super Metroid. No, it doesn't. However, it is pretty easy to get around. Some of the areas, all the areas are obviously interconnected, but there is an elevator in one or two areas that take you back. So it's not like Metroid Fusion. And from what I know from that, there's 6 different areas that are all connected by one central hub room. Is that right? I think something along those lines. So there's the areas are smaller, but there's a lot more
But still,
nooks.
teleportation points or fast travel points
Yeah.
for a game that's over 20 years old and isn't a perfect Dragon Quest game that gives you a zoom spell early, is that's remarkable.
Pretty new.
This game
Yeah.
feels fast and dense, and those are two
Yep.
things I really value when I play any kind of game, really.
Yeah.
And oh shoot, there's one part of this that I insist we talk about, and that's Michiru Yamane's soundtrack.
Oh, it's so good. This isn't her first Castlevania game,
No,
so
she worked on Bloodlines,
mhm.
which is an underrated good Castlevania game. But
Only one I haven't played.
it was. I think they are including it on that upcoming Castlevania collection.
It's
Uh,
already out.
yeah. It's already out. Okay, great,
Yeah, and it's
great. So
on
yeah,
there.
yes, the
It's on
Castlevania
that.
collection. It's on that, and but that game is only uh, the pre Metrovania Castlevania game, so it's only the action ones, and I don't think Rondo of Blood's on it.
I don't think so, and it's probably
Yeah,
because it's on the Requiem collection, I would say.
right,
But
exactly.
also, Bloodlines is going to be on the Genesis Mega Drive Mini as well, which is
Oh,
a
cool.
really good, yeah, really,
Yes.
really worth knowing.
Yeah, no, that is a very good Genesis game, very good Castlevania game, and it was Michiru Yamane's first Castlevania soundtrack. And Castlevania had good music even before Yamane's involvement, but I'd be lying if I say I don't love her. She is one of my favorite game composers, full stop.
For sure.
And Symphony of the Night is. I'm gonna have a blast editing this episode and putting Castlevania music at the beginning and end because um,
You're a
yeah,
field day.
it's awesome.
It's so good. It's
My,
so jazzy and electric, and it's just got everything. It's moody and gothic, and I don't know, like the just the beginning piece of music when you enter the castle for the first time is Alucard as he's running in, and the way in game as you start killing the wargs, it's slow. It fades in suddenly, and and then it starts playing really loud. And I feel so good about it.
and then they even play around with the music in the inverted castle. They have cave music in the library and chapel music in the cave,
Yeah.
and some and sometimes like they'll have basses carry the melody sometimes, and they go straight up into like rock guitars for the Tragic Prince, which is the castle ramparts after the clock tower,
Yeah.
and oh shoot, and the cave music is just beautiful.
I
And
love it all.
and they go straight up into like a churchy chorus music for the chapel. There's and then a weird like that weird jazz piano thing for the Colosseum.
Wandering Ghosts is so good. One of my favorite tracks,
Yeah, like
easily.
there's so much good music in Symphony of the Night. It really felt like Yamane was just throwing everything she had at it, and it's a very eclectic, cool result. It's awesome, and she didn't do like Igarashi. She didn't do every single Castlevania game after Symphony of the Night, but she did several of them, and her work is always good.
It's amazing. Yeah, this is easily one of my favorite soundtracks ever.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh.
it's excellent, and
Mhm.
and another transition, like we've talked almost everything we can about Symphony of the Night, so I want to change the subject a little bit. A different of the night is coming very, very soon. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is Koji Igarashi with Michiru Yamane's music and cover art by Ayami Kojima, but she didn't do a lot of work on the game. She just did like one like alternate box art or something. Koji Igarashi left Konami several years ago, and he at first through Kickstarter got crowdfunded Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is not a Castlevania game by name, but has a lot of similarities to the Castlevania games he made when he was with Konami, and it annihilated its crowdfunding targets because there were so many people excited to play this kind of game again.
Was it not the biggest, the most successful at the time before Shenmue 3, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, Kickstarter records they seem to be broken every 6 months. But
Yeah.
but Bloodstained did very, very well on Kickstarter. Ended up getting delayed twice, but we're getting it in a week or two as if we're posting this. I think it's June 17th for most systems, and then June 24th for Switch.
Yeah, a day. The June 18th and June
Oh, June
25th.
18th. Okay, 18th and 25th, right. So that's soon, and people were concerned about how slow some of the demos felt or how they didn't look great. But then, about 6 weeks ago, Igarashi put out this trailer that included him drinking a goblet of wine and shattering it, Dracula style.
Dracula style. Yeah, it was so good. I will be honest.
Man.
I have been. I really, really am excited for Bloodstained. I've mentioned it on our year-end episodes as being the most anticipated title 2 years in a row, I think. I love them.
I love them too, and I'm worried I'm going to steal your thunder here, but I've been worried about this game too.
Yeah, I have been as well, and I think that trailer does put away some doubts. Like the graphical quality wasn't really anything I was focusing on, but it was just more the reports that it was slow, the delays, the kind of. I feel bad, but Kickstarter kind of comes with some baggage nowadays, and it's like,
oh yeah,
Mighty Number 9. But
Mighty Number 9, the thing from the Final Fantasy Tactics people that went extremely sideways.
Oh God, yeah.
I forget what that thing was called.
Phoenix? Is that the one?
Project Phoenix, I think maybe.
Yes.
Maybe it changed its name later, but that was there's been a lot of Kickstarter disappointments, and like I almost wish for the games for the days before big Kickstarter, like before Broken Age, like when FTL was the biggest video game Kickstarter success, because no one even knew what Kickstarter was when FTL got funded, and I didn't play it until several years after its Kickstarter campaign, but. Like, there's a lot of baggage around crowdfunding nowadays, and the crowdfunding heyday when people were throwing money at Kickstarter all the time has passed, unless you're really deep into the tabletop gaming scene, which is thriving on Kickstarter still. But like there was a lot of suspicion, like the underwhelming demos, underwhelming art assets. They kept adding side studios to help with development.
Yeah.
And to which point, I think the credits are going to be an hour long by now.
Yeah,
but it's out soon, and I mean, it was because of all the bravado in that trailer, but I'm really excited for it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think maybe part of my anxiety over it is that I haven't actually tried it yet. Like, I haven't had a chance to play any of those demos, or like I wasn't even on the site when the Kickstarter got through, and like it's something I've only followed. Maybe when I joined the site, I think I picked up on it and was like, oh yeah, Koji Igarashi and more Castlevania. I always want that, but like. I'm super excited and super stoked, but I do have to wonder because a lot of time has passed since the last Castlevania, Metroidvania game, Order of Ecclesia. That's 10 years. 2009, Order of Ecclesia came out.
I think that there was a big console one.
Harmony of Despair. Yeah.
Well, but no, but I mean, Koji wasn't. I mean, Igarashi wasn't involved in this. But there's like isn't Lords of Shadow 2 more recent than Order of Ecclesia?
The DS version is a Metroidvania. You're right, Mirror of Fate.
Yeah, but Lords of Shadow was a very not the best PS3 game.
The sequel's meant to be a lot better, apparently, but
Oh,
like
really?
they're
Okay.
different. Yeah, I think the thing with those is, and I'm like, they're supposed to be good games, and I totally like. I've got a friend who's played them, but like,
Good.
Castlevania is, I don't know. I'm just attached to the old gothic kind of styly imagery,
I,
walking
I
around
don't I don't think
castles.
I don't think any of the 3D Castlevania games are great. Like I played through Lament of Innocence,
Yeah, I struggled with that a
and
lot.
I tried playing Curse of Darkness but didn't get very far. And one of my friends even said, "Oh no, you got to play that game with cheats on," which is not very.
That's not encouraging.
No, not at all. And then you have Lords of
Yeah.
Shadow 1 and 2, which I like. You could tell they were sort of going for a God of War 3 vibe, but that I
Yes,
wasn't totally feeling for either of them. I
definitely.
didn't get very far in any of them though, so I maybe I shouldn't judge. But still, to me, the Castlevania I want is that 2D giant castle to explore.
Hmm.
That was maybe most successful in Symphony of the Night, and then replicated several times. Like that's what I want, and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night might be what I want. It
I
might be
really,
another good one of those, and
I
I really hope it is.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was when I was talking about last Castlevania game, I was just specifically going for Metroidvania castle style
Hmm.
exploration games like Order of Ecclesia. So like in that 10-year gap between Order of Ecclesia and Bloodstained, Metroidvania as a subgenre for the indie scene has
Oh my God!
exploded.
It's
It
like
is the biggest one.
if you interpret the indie scene as developers that grew up playing video games and now making the games that they want, like if you interpret it like that, then holy crap, so many of these people wanted to make their own Metrovania. Because
Yeah, and
there's
now
so many good ones. Oh shoot, like I mean, my favorite one's probably Timespinner or the first
mhm.
Guacamelee, which feel very different. Timespinner is extremely similar to Symphony of the Night in in the way that you sort of program your loadout of skills and spells, and even have your double jump and super jump feel similar to Symphony of the Night.
And you got familiars and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And but while Guacamelee is basically a platformer at Metrovania, to
Mhm.
which point where like the skills that you learn each have a different color associated with them, and and then there's blocks of that color that can be broken with that skill. It's a very cartoony Mexican wrestler themed
It's
Metrovania
cute.
game. You know, it's pretty good. It gets hard at the end for all the later platforming challenges, but
Oh.
that game's pretty good. Do you have any other Metrovania indie that you've loved recently?
Well, Timespinner is my favorite one, yes, but it does
Ti
very much. It is very much an Order of Ecclesia, a Symphony of the Night like fanfare, but it does
Yeah.
its own thing, and the style and like I love the look of the modern day areas, like the
Oh yeah. No.
steampunk side of things is awesome.
It's artistically it is gorgeous. The gameplay and story are fun enough, and it feels more like Symphony of the Night than average for this kind of game, but it's extremely successful. It's again, it's probably my favorite SOTN clone.
Yeah, but there's been a couple of other ones, so I haven't played many. I mean, the only other one I really played is Dust, and I really struggled with the art style of
Oh,
that. But actually, as much as I played it, I did really enjoy the combat and the exploration side of things. That is a really big success story for
that
that
and
studio.
also and yeah, Dust has great music as well. They
Yes,
shoot those two Irish guys, Hyperduck did the music for
that's
that one.
it.
Yep.
Yeah,
And Hyperduck, I adore everything they make. So yeah, Dust was quite cool visually and audio wise.
yeah,
But yeah, like Symphony of the Night, it started out as almost like a culmination of everything Castlevania, and it's gone on to be the most influential Castlevania game, like half of an influential genre that we still see in the indie scene today, and probably the most common answer to what your favorite Castlevania game is. Am I misconceiving that?
no, I don't think so. It's mine, definitely.
It
It's not even a nostalgia thing for me. It just feels right. It's fast. It's easy. It's fluid. It just rewards exploration, which I love. And most of the games do this, but I think Symphony of the Night is the one that has the most secrets, the most quirks, the most, stupid things. And even when it's glitchy and broken and some things don't load properly or you reset it on a certain screen and you end up on another
oh
screen,
my
like this.
God, I almost forgot to mention the loading screen. This is the best loading screen in history.
Which one?
The loading screen that just says loading it, but
Oh, right.
when you press buttons on the controller, the loading can twist or
Yes.
turn around.
Yes, it does.
One very weird disappointment thing I had playing Requiem is that the PS4 processor allows the game to load pretty quickly, so I didn't get to play around with the loading screen very
Oh,
much.
no. Oh,
It was like a second of loading screen instead of 5 seconds.
yeah. And then Symphony of the Night is like the base for the rest of the series,
Yeah.
but like the other games reuse assets, like sprite work is reused and things like that. But yeah, it's such an easy answer, and I think Aria of Sorrow is the only other one that's got really close. And Order of Ecclesia is a bit underloved, I think, and it's a bit more challenging than the rest of the Metroidvanias. It's probably the hardest one post Symphony of the Night, I would say. But yeah, it's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I don't know what the hardest one after Symphony of the Night is, but my favorite one of the after Symphony, again, it's a conversation between Aria of Sorrow and Order of Ecclesia, but they're all at least pretty good. But I remember after playing each one of them, they're like, this is good and I had fun, but it's not Symphony of the Night. Like you don't have Alucard with that host of skills, and the castle always seems smaller than Symphony of the Night was, or like a lot of those games are great, but Symphony of the Night feels the most special, and it's my favorite too. Maybe a conventional answer, but there's a reason that the classics are classics.
Exactly.
And
There's no warp translations in all the recent ones as well. Like
no,
Grand Falloon is great, and
Grand Falloon instead of Legion. Oh man.
and Chris Agreem spelt wrong, so
Chris Grimm is just a cooler name than Valmanway, also.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah,
But
there's also no Wall Corpse because I do love my stupid. Apparently, I have a
Mhm.
fascination with Castlevania bosses that are on walls. So I love Wall Goat Drebelech.
Oh
But
yeah,
I also
in
love
Circle of the Moon, yeah.
yeah, but I also love Beelzebub Dead Corpse on the wall.
Beelzebub's kind of hard if you're not ready for him.
Yeah,
Because
I really love it
it
though.
is way too easy to jump into flies. Oh man, but
Yeah,
yeah.
have the Topaz Circler. That will help. Then
Oh,
poison heals you. You can get an accessory where poison heals you. You should pick it up normally, but yeah.
you see, there's so many little secrets and tricks to this game that I definitely don't know half of them.
Yeah, no, me neither. No. I do try and pull off glitches every time I play it now. I'm like, I can never get it right, and I'm not patient enough to try it again. Because there is a glitch in the original PS1 game where if you backdash out of the room where death steals all of your equipment, because you start off really powerful like you do in Metroid, and then you lose all your gear. If you backdash out at the right time, you can skip that cutscene, so you have the Alucard gear for the entire game. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that would be awesome because I mean, you find all of the Alucard gear in the inverted castle normally, which will be 5-6 hours down the line.
Yeah. Also, like, I love the fact that the capes change the color of the bat wings.
Yeah,
It's cute.
and
I
and,
like
and
each bat.
if when you equip the crystal cape, your wings will be a little translucent,
Yeah.
and the reverse cape will make him look real strange. But yeah, the final one, the Twilight cape and the Joseph cape cloak that let you change the color. Those are still the best two.
Yeah.
All right, if we're talking about our favorite color combinations of the bat transformation, maybe it's time to end the episode. Thank you so much, Alana, for joining me. This felt like the right time to talk about Bloodstained and Metrovania and Castlevania, which we haven't done on this podcast in 3.5 years. So I was really excited to. Thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for having me. I'm disappointed that it hasn't come up again because it is one of my favorite silly genres and series, and I'd love
We'll
to.
I
We'll
don't
get there.
know. We'll intimidate some of the new staff into joining us for an Aria of Sorrow episode eventually. Listeners, if another Castlevania episode comes up in the next six months, know that Alana and I have been doing some work behind the scenes. But speaking of behind the scenes, next week we're doing a special Mothers and Fathers episode. Right around the same time as American Father's Day, where we talk about the best RPG moms and dads, also mimicking or borrowing features that RPG Fan put on the site. A mother feature around Mother's Day in May, and a Father's Day upcoming later in June. We're gonna have a podcast episode all about moms and dads that Lana, you're also signed up for, so that's gonna be really fun to record.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it.
Right on. And later in June, we are going to have an episode, or maybe two episodes, I haven't decided yet, on Until Dawn, which was the horror slasher game that came out a few years ago. That was a bit of a Twitch.tv sensation. I have never played it before, so I'm really excited
Ooh.
to try it. All I really know is that it's a horror slasher game that has a twist at the end, and so I'm excited to try it.
It's seriously good. It might be my favorite choice-based game
Oh
that's
wow.
around. It's really good. Like, I think if you're a fan of really B horror movies from the 80s, or even if you're not, like, you can appreciate the way it's made. I think
You see,
find out.
I'm strange. I don't love horror.
No, I
I
don't.
don't even play many horror games. But there's a couple horror things I really like. Like I love all three Evil Dead movies. I have more. I have
You'll be
more.
fine then.
I have more than the normal amount of affection for Scream. I even think Scream 2 is underrated. Is really underrated. But so I'm looking forward to this. And again, I'll probably play it during the daylight because
Yeah, I did.
for reasons I don't play a lot of horror, but I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be later this month. And in July, we had a reader poll that occurred a month or maybe 2 months ago that settled on Wild Arms 3 being a future game for Retro Encounter episodes, and I think we're going to have those played and posted in July, so that's coming very soon. But that's all we have planned in the future that I can say right now. Listeners, if you want to contact us, the best way to do so is email retro@rpgfan.com. You can also visit rpgfan.com's message boards, the Facebook page, an Instagram, a Twitter account, a Discord channel, a Twitch channel streaming every day of the week, and you can find all of those things from the front page of rpgfan.com. We also have two other podcasts, Random Encounter, which is about current events, and Rhythm Encounter, which is about RPG music. One of those updates a little bit more frequently than the other, but we are going to try and bring back Rhythm Encounter later this year. But listeners, also you can review us or those other podcasts on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or however you're listening to us. Please leave constructive criticism if you have a mind to. But I think that's about all for now. Alana, how can listeners reach you?
So same place as always, everyone. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Alana Hagues. For anything RPG fan related on the Discord and on the forums, I am Diving Falcons. But if you want to email me as well personally, it is alanah@rpgfan.com. But always happy to talk, and Twitter's the best place to find me as always.
Especially if it's about Castlevania. Because
especially if it's about Castlevania. At the moment I'm fighting off. I'm beating Symphony of the Night recently and coming off of the back of Timespinner and a couple of other Metroidvanias.
I
played fighting the urge to beat Aria and Dawn again. I have a flight to come up, so maybe I could.
Oh, you probably could. Because E3 has not begun at the time of this recording, but you and I are both going to be getting on airplanes pretty soon to attend that show.
Mm-hmm, we will. This will go up while we're out there as well. So.
And I played Symphony of the Night last week in preparation for this podcast. And I played Timespinner earlier this year. I think I could check my Twitter feed to check, but it was around February or March. And I loved Timespinner. It was so much fun going back to Symphony of the Night, and I will be 100% ready for Bloodstained when that comes out.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Curse of the Moon.
Spin-off. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is going to be similar to Symphony of the Night, but Curse of the Moon, the spin-off, which is already out, is an old school branching paths Castlevania action game.
Cool. That's got good sprite work, like Shovel Knight really levels of NES sprite work. It's cool.
I didn't beat it. I got to the first 3 stages, and then I hit a bit of a wall and started playing something else. But it was it was extremely cool that they came out with that and gave it away for free for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night backers. But I think you can find it for probably $10, £8 range.
Yeah.
For on various on Switch or Vita or PS4, maybe other places as well. But that thing was a really, really cool thing that they developed on the side. But yeah, I guess back to social media. Listeners, if you want to reach me, the best way to do so is Twitter. I am at @TheRealMonsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs when I'm popping off on weird stuff. And I'm also Monsoon Mike on Discord, Monsoon on the forums, and Sollosi at rpgfan.com for website inquiries. Oh, boy, that was a lot of fun. But I think we're about done for today, Alana. So let us go out this evening for pleasure. The night is still young.